The winter wind bit through the timber walls of the Ashford ranch house like a living thing with teeth. Benjamin Ashford stood in his study staring at three objects arranged on the worn oak desk. Each one carried the weight of a decision that could not be unmade. The first was a letter, cream-colored paper, careful handwriting, creased from being folded and unfolded too many times. From Eleanor Rose Whitmore, Boston, Massachusetts. Posted November 28th. Promising arrival December 15th. 24 days ago. The second was a deed. Legal document, government seal describing 640 acres of Colorado grassland and timber, signed by his father Jacob in 1879. Passed to Ben 5 years ago when Jacob died. The land that defined everything he was, everything he had to protect. The third was a photograph. His wife Rebecca holding infant Tommy, taken 8 months before scarlet fever took her, her smile frozen in silver nitrate. Her eyes watching him from beyond the grave. Ben's calloused fingers touched each item in turn. Letter, deed, photograph. The geometry of his life reduced to paper and glass. Outside December snow fell in sheets. The study door burst open. Tommy stood there 10 years old, face flushed from running. His breath came in gasps that made small clouds in the cold air. "Pa," the boy's voice cracked with urgency. "Mr. Thornton's men, at the north fence again. They're cutting wire." Ben's jaw tightened. He moved to the gun rack mounted on the wall. His hands knew the weight of the Winchester Model 1873 before his conscious mind registered the motion. 15 rounds in the tube magazine, 44-40 caliber. The rifle that won the West, they called it. Ben called it insurance. He worked the lever action. Smooth. No hesitation in the mechanism. The metallic click echoed in the small room. "How many men?" Ben's voice was level, calm. The voice of a man who had seen battle and survived it. 3, maybe 4. They got wire cutters. Big ones. "Get inside. Stay with Martha when she arrives. Do not leave this house." Tommy's eyes went wide. "Pa, you gonna shoot them?" Ben looked at his son, really looked at him. The boy had Rebecca's eyes, her determination. But he had Ben's stubborn streak. The part that wouldn't bend even when bending was the smart choice. "No, son, I'm going to talk to them. But talking goes better when you're holding good steel." He pulled on his heavy coat, checked that his Colt revolver sat secure in its holster. The single-action Army model, 45 caliber, 6 rounds. He had carried it through the tail end of the Civil War. It had never failed him. Tommy watched his father prepare. Is Miss Eleanor really coming? The question hung in the cold air between them. "I don't know anymore," Ben admitted, "but I aim to find out." The ride to the north fence took 20 minutes. Thunder Ben's gray gelding picked his way through snow that reached past his knees in places. The horse's breath steamed in the frigid air. Each step crunched. The world had gone white and silent except for that rhythmic sound. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Ben saw them before they heard him coming. 3 men working at the fence line. Wire cutters gleaming in weak winter sunlight. Strands of barbed wire already curled on the ground like metal snakes. The wire was Glidden patent, 1874 design. 2 strands, twisted barbs every 4 inches. Ben had strung 2 miles of it last spring. Cost him $40. More than he wanted to spend, but cattle needed boundaries. Boundaries needed wire. Now 3 men were cutting it down. Ben stopped Thunder 30 yards out, close enough to be heard, far enough to have options. "That's my fence you're destroying." The men turned. 2 wore working clothes, ranch hands. The third was better dressed. Clean coat, good boots. This one did the talking. "Mr. Ashford, we're following orders." "Whose orders?" "Mr. Thornton's. Says this fence crosses his water access." Ben kept his voice steady. "This fence follows the survey markers from 1879. Government Land Office certified. Every post is on my side of the property line." The well-dressed man shrugged. "That may be, but the creek runs through here. Mr. Thornton says his family's used that water since 1865. Says he's got rights." "He's got no legal rights, just a claim he can't prove." "Maybe so, but he sent us to remove the obstruction. That's what we're doing." Ben's hand rested on the Winchester across his saddle, not threatening, just present. Tell Mr. Thornton I'll see him in court if he wants to dispute boundaries. Until then, my fence stays up. One of the ranch hands spoke up, young, maybe 20. We got our orders, Mr. Ashford. And I've got mine. From the United States government. My land. My water. My fence. The standoff held for 10 heartbeats. Then hoofbeats approached from the north. Silas Thornton rode up on a blood bay mare, 50 years old, weathered face, eyes that had seen too much loss. He dismounted slowly, deliberately, a man used to being obeyed. Ashford, not hostile, just tired. Thornton. The two men faced each other across 20 feet of snow-covered ground. The hired hands backed away. This was between the principals now. Your father made a promise to mine, Thornton said, about the creek, about sharing water. My father's been dead 5 years. I found no written agreement. It was a gentleman's agreement. 1867, after my father helped yours fight off claim jumpers. Blood was spilled. Promises were made. Ben felt the weight of history pressing down. He had heard stories. His father Jacob talking about the early days, the violence, the uncertainty, men helping men because survival demanded it. If there was an agreement, Ben said carefully, it died with them. I need that water, Thornton. This ranch won't survive without it. Thornton's face hardened. My son died because of a boundary dispute. Did you know that? Ben hadn't known. The words hit like a physical blow. Daniel, 16 years old. There was an argument about fence lines. Between your father and mine, my boy tried to fix it. Cut wire. Slipped. Fell into the creek when it was running high from spring melt. Thornton's voice never wavered, but his eyes held oceans of grief. Your father pulled him out, tried to save him, but the water was too cold, too fast. Daniel died in Jacob's arms. Ben felt his throat tighten. I'm sorry, I didn't know. No reason you would. It was 12 years ago you were off playing soldier. The barb found its mark. Ben had enlisted in 1870, came home in 73, missed years of his father's life, missed whatever understanding the two old men had reached. That gentleman's agreement, Thornton continued, it was my father's way of apologizing, and your father's way of accepting. They both lost something that day, but they chose to build something instead of destroy. Ben looked at the cut wire, at the creek running cold and clear through both properties, at the mountains rising in the distance. What do you want, Thornton? What I want is my son back. Since I can't have that, I want the agreement honored. I can't give you water I need to survive. Then we're at an impasse. Thornton turned to leave, stopped, looked back. You're getting married, I hear. Boston woman, mail order bride. That's my business. Word in town is she never showed up, that you're planning to go looking for her in this weather. Ben said nothing. Confirmation, enough. Thornton's expression shifted. Something almost like sympathy crossed his weathered features. When you get back, if you get back, we'll settle this, one way or another. He mounted his mare. His men followed. They rode north, leaving cut wire and unresolved conflict behind. Ben sat thunder for a long time, watching them disappear into the white landscape. Then he rode home to make a different kind of decision. The house was warm when he entered. Martha Brennan had arrived, 55 years old, widow. She had helped raise Tommy after Rebecca died, cooked, cleaned, became the closest thing to a mother the boy had known. She stood at the stove stirring something that smelled of beef and vegetables. Her face showed concern when she saw Ben's expression. Bad, getting worse. Will there be shooting? Not today, but soon, maybe. Martha set down her spoon. Ben, you can't control everything. Sometimes you have to let things go. My father made promises I can't keep. Now I'm supposed to break them or lose my land. Which one makes me the better man? The one who keeps his son safe and fed. That's the better man. Tommy emerged from his room, face scrubbed, hair combed, ready to hear news he both wanted and dreaded. Pa, is Miss Eleanor coming? Ben pulled the letter from his coat pocket. Read it again even though he had memorized every word. Dear Mr. Ashford, I write with Gay to confirm my departure from Boston on the 1st of December. The train will carry me westward. I should arrive in Salida by the 15th, weather permitting. I confess to both excitement and trepidation. We have shared our hearts through letters. Soon we shall share our lives in truth. Your devoted correspondent, Eleanor Rose Whitmore. The date on the postmark said November 28th. 24 days of silence. Ben folded the letter, made his decision. I'm going to find her. Martha's hand went to her mouth. Ben, no, the pass is closed. 3 feet of snow, maybe more. If she tried to make it through and got caught in the storm, she needs help. You don't know that she's out there. Maybe she changed her mind. Maybe she never left Boston. She gave her word. That means something. Does it mean enough to die for? The question hung heavy. Ben looked at Tommy, at the boy's hope and fear warring in his young face. Son, what do you think? Tommy's voice came small. I dreamed about her pa last night. She was calling for help. Martha's skepticism showed. Tommy, dreams aren't real. This one felt real. Ben made his choice. I leave at first light. Martha, can you stay with Tommy? You know I will, but Ben, this is foolish. Maybe, but it's my kind of foolish. Martha moved to the kitchen counter, pulled an envelope from her apron pocket. This came yesterday. I was going to give it to you tonight. It's from Boston, from a law office. Ben took the envelope. Heavy paper, official seal. He didn't open it. About Miss Eleanor. I assume, didn't seem my place to read your mail. Ben tucked it into his shirt pocket. I'll read it when I find her. He spent the rest of that day preparing. Military training had taught him that survival depended on equipment and planning. Luck was just preparation meeting opportunity. Winchester model 1873, 15 rounds in the magazine, 44-40 caliber, 50 additional rounds in his saddlebags. Sharps rifle model 1874, single shot, 45-70 caliber. For hunting if he needed fresh meat, 20 rounds, Colt single action revolver, 45 caliber, 6 rounds loaded, 18 more in reserve. Bedroll wrapped in oilcloth tarp, waterproof. Woodshed snow and rain, food. 2 pounds of jerky, hardtack biscuits, coffee, sugar, salt, lucifer matches in a waterproof tin, tools, 50 feet of rope, wire cutters, 10-inch Bowie knife, hatchet, medical supplies, laudanum for pain, bandages, needle and thread for stitching wounds, navigation, brunt and compass from his army days, still accurate, horse equipment, extra shoes, nails, farrier's rasp. Thunder would need good footing in mountain terrain. He worked methodically, checking each item, testing each piece of gear. His hands remembered these motions from the war, from campaigns where being unprepared meant dying. Tommy watched from the doorway. Pa, do you love Miss Eleanor? Ben paused, thought about the question. I love the woman I met through her letters. Whether that's the same as the woman herself, I won't know until I find her. What if she's not what you expected? Then I'll deal with that when it comes. But I gave my word I'd be waiting for her in Salida. She gave her word she'd be there. Words matter, son, even when they're hard to keep, especially then. That night, Ben sat in his study. The photograph of Rebecca watched him in lamplight. He picked it up, traced her face through the glass. I'm not replacing you, he said to the image, to the memory, to the ghost that still lived in this house. I'm trying to live, like you told me to do in your last letter. He opened the bottom drawer of his desk, pulled out a sealed envelope, Rebecca's handwriting on the outside. To be opened after I'm gone. He had read it only once, 5 years ago, the day after they buried her. Now he read it again. My dearest Ben, if you are reading this, I am no longer with you. The fever has taken me. I am not afraid. I am only sorry to leave you and our beautiful boy. You will want to grieve. You will want to close yourself off. You will think you are protecting Tommy by staying alone. Do not. He needs to see you live. He needs to see you love. Find someone, Benjamin. Find someone who can love our son the way I do. Find someone who can make you smile again. I release you from any promise to mourn forever. Live for both of us now. All my love, always, Rebecca. Ben folded the letter, put it back in the drawer, closed it. I'm trying, Rebecca. I'm trying. Dawn came cold and clear. Ben saddled Thunder in the pre-dawn darkness. The horse sensed the journey ahead. Stamped, snorted, ready. Tommy came out wearing his coat, eyes red from either cold or crying. You'll bring her home, won't you, Pa? I'll bring someone home, either her or myself. Promise? I promise I'll do my best. That's all any man can promise. They embraced, father and son, the boy's arms tight around Ben's waist. Martha stood on the porch. She pressed a cloth-wrapped package into Ben's hands. Extra biscuits. You'll get hungry. Thank you. Ben, come back alive. That boy needs his father more than he needs a mother. He needs both. He swung up into the saddle. Thunder shifted under his weight, eager to move. Frank Calloway rode up out of the darkness. 45 years old, lean and tough. He ran the general store in Salida. He had fought alongside Ben in the war. Some bonds you don't break. Heard you were leaving. Wanted to catch you. Frank, got supplies for you. Extra ammunition, blankets, some medical gear. They transferred items to Ben's saddlebags, working in practiced silence. Ben, I'll watch your property while you're gone. Keep an eye on Thornton's men. Appreciated. Frank hesitated. There's something else you should know. Thornton filed papers with Judge Patterson. Wants a hearing about water rights. January 5th. 2 weeks. If I'm not back, you know what to do. Fight it in court. With what money, you're barely breaking even as it is. Then I better be back. Frank gripped Ben's arm. Brother, don't die for a woman you've never met. I'm not dying for her. I'm living for the man I want to be. The ride east began in darkness. Ben followed the road toward Poncha Pass, the same route the stagecoaches took from Denver to Salida. If Eleanor had come this way, her trail would be somewhere along this path. The sun rose slowly, pale winter light turning the snow golden, then white, then blinding. Thunder climbed steadily. The pass rose from 7,000 feet to 9,000. Trees thinned, wind increased, temperature dropped. Ben watched the sky, knew weather like other men knew their wives. Those cirrus clouds forming to the west meant another storm coming. Maybe 24 hours, maybe less. The pass showed signs of recent travel, stagecoach tracks, mostly filled in by drifting snow but still visible. Someone had come through here within the last few days. Ben pushed on. The cold seeped through his coat, through his gloves, into his bones. He had experienced worse. Valley Forge had been colder. But that was youth. Now he was 33. Age made everything harder. He stopped at noon to rest Thunder. Fed the horse from a bag of oats, ate jerky and hardtack himself, scanned the endless white landscape. No movement, no smoke, no signs of life, just snow and rock and silence. The first night he found a shallow cave, more of an overhang than true shelter. But it blocked the wind. He built a small fire using inner bark from a dead spruce. The bark caught easily, dry, good tinder. He fed the fire carefully, making it last. Wood was scarce above tree line. Every piece mattered. Thunder stood nearby. The horse's bulk provided additional warmth. Ben had learned in the army that men and horses survived together or died separately. He thought about his father, Jacob Ashford, homesteader, builder, man of his word. Had Jacob really promised Thornton's father water rights, Ben had gone through every paper in the study, found the deed, found receipts, found letters, but no agreement about the creek. Yet Thornton's grief had been real. His son's death had been real. How did you balance honor to the dead against survival of the living? Jacob had taught Ben to read land, to read water, to read men. A man's word is his bond, Benjamin, even if it cost you everything. But what if it cost Tommy everything? Ben fed the fire. Watch his shadows dance on stone. Made no decisions except to keep moving forward. Morning brought discovery. The stagecoach sat tilted in a ravine, half buried in snow. One wheel broken, the whole vehicle canted at an angle that spoke of violence. Ben approached carefully, Winchester ready, not expecting ambush, but prepared for it. The coach was empty, luggage compartment forced open, contents scattered. He dismounted, examined the scene with eyes that had tracked both game and men. The axle hadn't just broken, it showed marks. Regular, deliberate, someone had sawed halfway through, weakened it just enough that rough terrain would finish the job. This was no accident. This was sabotage. He studied the tracks around the coach. 4 men, maybe 5. Boots, Not the rough work boots of road agents. These were well-made, expensive. They had searched the luggage methodically, not tearing, not destroying, looking for something specific. Ben followed the tracks south. They led to a line of trees, then to a hunter's cabin. Smoke rose from the chimney. He called out from 50 yards. "Hello, the cabin. I'm Benjamin Ashford from Salida, looking for survivors from the stage." The door opened. An old man peered out, 65, maybe 70, dressed well despite circumstances. "Come ahead. We're friendly." Ben approached it, keeping the Winchester visible but not threatening. Inside the cabin, 6 people huddled around a fire. 2 men, 3 women, 1 younger man with his arm in a makeshift sling. The old man introduced himself. "Walter Price, merchant from Denver. This is Clara Thompson, school teacher. Jacob Miller there, he's got a broken arm. And these 2 gentlemen are miners heading to Leadville." The 6th person stepped forward from the shadows. 45 years old, well-dressed, doctor's bag at his feet. "I'm Harrison Blackwood, physician from Boston." Ben's attention sharpened. "Boston? Yes. Why, I'm looking for someone." "A woman traveling from Boston to Salida, Eleanor Rose Whitmore." The doctor's face went pale. He gripped the back of a chair. "Mr. Ashford, I need to speak with you. Privately." They stepped outside. The cold bit hard after the cabin's warmth. Blackwood looked shaken. "You're the man Eleanor came west to marry." "Yes." "Then you need to know something. Eleanor is in danger. Serious danger." Ben's hand tightened on the Winchester. "From what? From whom?" "There are men looking for her, professional men. Pinkerton detectives, I believe." "Why?" Blackwood took a breath, let it out slowly. "Eleanor is not simply a seamstress from Boston, Mr. Ashford. She is the widow of Captain James Whitmore, Union officer, killed at Gettysburg in 1863. Ben waited. There was more. He could feel it. James Whitmore came from old Boston money, textile mills, shipping interests. When he died, his estate passed to Eleanor, $200,000. The number hit Ben like a rifle shot. 200,000, more money than he would see in 10 lifetimes. His family contested the inheritance, claimed Eleanor was mentally unfit, not capable of managing such wealth. They fought her in courts for 20 years. 20 years. She won final judgment this year, 1883, full control of the estate. But James's brother Lawrence Whitmore refused to accept it. Blackwood's voice dropped lower. The stagecoach didn't crash by accident. Those men who came, who searched our belongings, they were looking for Eleanor. When they didn't find her, they left. But they'll be back. Ben's mind raced. A woman with $200,000, running from men who wanted that money, coming west to marry a rancher she had never met. "Where is she now?" Clara Thompson, the school teacher, spoke from the doorway. "She left yesterday morning, said she couldn't wait, that someone was expecting her, someone who wouldn't understand the delay." "Which way did she go?" "West, towards Salida. But Mr. Ashford, there was another storm last night. Heavy snow. Her tracks are gone." Ben looked at the sky. More clouds building. Another storm coming. "How long ago did she leave?" 24 hours, maybe 26. A woman alone, in a blizzard, with men hunting her. Ben turned to Thunder, checked the cinch, adjusted the saddlebags. Walter Price called out, "Mr. Ashford, you can't go out there. You'll die." "Maybe, but she's out there because of me, because I asked her to come." "You didn't know." "Doesn't matter. She kept her word. I'll keep mine." He swung into the saddle. Dr. Blackwood grabbed Thunder's bridle. "If you find her, Mr. Ashford, you need to know something else." "What?" "Eleanor is one of the bravest women I've ever met. She nursed soldiers at Gettysburg, saw horrors no woman should see. She survived 20 years of legal warfare. She's stronger than you think." "Then she'll survive until I find her." Ben rode west into gathering storm. The afternoon turned white. Snow fell heavy, wind picked up, visibility dropped to 50 yards, then 30, then 10. Ben followed the tree line, kept the mountains to his left, trusted Thunder's instincts when his own senses failed. The cold became total, absolute, the kind of cold that killed. He called out periodically, Eleanor, Eleanor Whitmore. The wind took his voice, scattered it across miles of empty wilderness. He should turn back, should seek shelter, should survive to try again tomorrow. But tomorrow she might be dead. He thought about the letter. I confess to both excitement and trepidation. A woman traveling 2,000 miles to marry a stranger. A woman with $200,000 choosing a Colorado rancher with 600 acres and more debt than assets. Well, he thought about Rebecca's last letter. Find someone who can love our son. Two women, both showing courage, both asking him to be better than he was. He pushed on. The sun dropped toward the horizon. What little light penetrated the storm began to fail. Ben knew he was at decision point. Keep searching and risk dying. Turn back and guarantee Eleanor's death. He decided to search one more hour. Then he would have to find shelter or freeze. Thunder suddenly stopped. Refused to go forward. Ben urged him on. The horse wouldn't move. Then Ben saw why. A ravine, hidden by snow. One more step and both horse and rider would have tumbled 30 feet onto rocks. Good boy, Ben whispered. He dismounted, led Thunder carefully around the obstacle. That's when he saw it. A dark shape against white snow. 50 yards ahead, under the spreading branches of a spruce tree. At first he thought it was a fallen log or a rock. But something about the shape was wrong, too rounded, too small. He approached on foot, leading Thunder, moving carefully through drifts. The shape resolved into a human form. Curled, unmoving, a woman. Cloak crusted with ice, face buried in her arms. Ben knelt beside her, pulled off his glove, touched her neck, feeling for pulse. There, faint, thready, but there. He turned her gently, brushed snow from her face. She matched the photograph Eleanor had sent. Blonde hair, fine features, in her early 40s, perhaps 42 or 43 years old. Her eyelids fluttered, opened, eyes the color of summer sky. She looked at him. Recognition flickered. Benjamin. Her voice barely a whisper. Is it really you? Yes, I found you. I knew you'd come, I dreamed it. Her eyes closed again, body going limp. Ben checked her hands, her feet. The white waxy appearance of frostbite showed on fingers and toes. Serious but not fatal if treated quickly. He lifted her. She weighed less than he expected. Hollow, as if she had burned through all her reserves just staying alive. He laid her across Thunder's saddle, mounted behind her, wrapped his arms around her to share body heat. No time to build a fire here. Too exposed, too dangerous. He remembered a line shack, half a mile west, used by cattlemen in summer. Might still be standing. He turned Thunder toward it. The horse plodded through snow, each step an effort. Ben held the woman close, felt her breathing. Shallow, too slow. Stay with me, Eleanor. We're almost there. No response. The line shack appeared through blowing snow like a gift from God. Small, weathered, but intact. Ben dismounted, carried Eleanor inside. The interior was dark and cold, but dry. He laid her on a rough wooden bunk, stripped off his gloves, worked with numb fingers to start a fire in the small stove. Tinder, kindling, larger wood, building it carefully. His hands shook from cold and urgency. The fire caught, grew. Heat began to fill the space. He turned to Eleanor. Her clothes were soaked through, frozen in places. She needed dry clothes, needed warmth. He pulled spare shirt from his saddlebag. A pair of wool socks. Not much, but better than nothing. Eleanor, can you hear me? A slight movement of her head. I need to get you out of these wet clothes. Do you understand? Her eyes open, confusion, fear. You're safe. I'm Benjamin Ashford. We've been writing letters. Remember? Recognition slowly dawned. Benjamin. Yes, now I need to help you, trust me. She nodded slightly. He worked with as much decency as possible. Removing outer garments, averting his eyes when he could, preserving her modesty. This was survival, not romance. That's when he saw them. The bruises on her arms, purple, recent, and something else. An old scar on her shoulder. Long, deliberate. Not the kind that came from accidents. She had been hurt, more than once. He got her into dry clothes. His shirt hung on her like a dress. He wrapped her in both blankets he carried, moved her close to the stove. Her fingers and toes needed careful attention. He knew not to rub them. That was a mistake that cost men their extremities. Gradual rewarming. That's what army surgeons had taught. He melted snow in his tin cup, held it over the fire until the water was warm. Not hot, warm. Eleanor, I need you to drink this. He lifted her head, brought the cup to her lips. She sipped, coughed, sipped again. Color began returning to her cheeks, the terrible grayish pallor fading. He prepared coffee, added sugar. The sweetness would help with shock. She took the cup in the shaking hands, drank slowly. Where am I? Line Shack, about 15 miles east of Salida. Do you remember what happened? The stagecoach, it crashed. People were hurt. I helped them. Then I realized something was wrong. Her voice grew stronger as warmth returned. There were men, searching through luggage, looking for something, looking for me. I know, Dr. Blackwood told me. Fear flickered across her face. He told you about the money, about the Whitmore family, about the Pinkertons. She looked away, shame coloring her features. I should have told you in my letters. I wanted to, but I was afraid you wouldn't want me if you knew. Ben sat back on his heels, studied this woman he had ridden through a blizzard to find. Eleanor, why did you really come west? She met his eyes, tears forming, but not falling. Because I've spent 20 years fighting for money I never wanted, fighting people who hated me, living in a cage made of gold and lawyers and spite. You could have given the money away, bought your freedom. I tried. They contested everything. Every dollar I tried to donate, every charity I tried to help. They fought me in courts, claimed I was squandering the family fortune. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Then I saw your advertisement. A rancher in Colorado, widower, looking for a wife to help raise his son. And I thought there's a man who wants something real, something honest. Not money, not status, just partnership. So you answered. So I answered. And when I read your letters, Benjamin, I fell in love with the man who wrote them. A man who talked about his land, his son, his hopes. A man who never once asked about my finances. Because I didn't care about your finances. That's why I'm here. That's why I walked through a blizzard. Because you're the first person in 20 years who saw me instead of my bank account. Ben added wood to the fire, thought about everything she had said, everything he had learned. Eleanor, there's a letter in my pocket, came from a law office in Boston. About you, I assume. I haven't read it. It's from Lawrence Whitmore's attorney, threatening legal action, claiming I'm mentally unfit, that I need protection from my own decisions. Are you, mentally unfit? She almost laughed. I nursed dying soldiers at Gettysburg in my early 20s. I've managed a fortune through 2 decades of legal warfare. I've survived everything they threw at me. Does that sound unfit? It sounds like the sanest thing I've heard all day. He pulled dried beef from his pack. Hardtack. Simple food but nourishing. They ate in silence. The storm howled outside. Inside, the fire crackled. Heat slowly filled the small space. Benjamin, I need to tell you something else. All right. When the stagecoach was sabotaged, when those men came looking for me, I made a decision. I couldn't go back. Couldn't let them take me back to Boston. Back to courts and lawyers and fighting. She looked at him directly. I decided I would rather die in Colorado snow than live one more day as a prisoner in Boston. The words hung between them. Heavy, true. Ben thought about his own reasons for being here, about Tommy asking for a mother, about Rebecca's letter releasing him, about his advertisement seeking partnership. Eleanor Rose Whitmore, I rode into a blizzard to find you, not for your money, for your letters, for the woman who wrote about new beginnings and second chances. And now that you've found me, now we rest, tomorrow we ride to Salida. After that, we figure things out together. She smiled, the first real smile he had seen. Together, I like the sound of that. Night settled over the mountains. The storm continued its assault on the thin walls. But inside the line shack, two people who had found each other against all odds began the slow process of becoming what they had promised to be. Ben sat with his back against the wall, Winchester across his knees, watching both the door and the woman sleeping across from him. Outside in the darkness, fresh snow covered old tracks, but Ben knew what he had seen. Someone had been here, recently, watching. The expensive boot prints outside the cabin before he entered. The careful way items had been arranged, as if someone wanted him to know they had been here. Pinkerton's Lawrence Whitmore's men, or someone else. He checked the Winchester again. 15 rounds ready. The Colt on his hip held 6 more. Whatever came next, he would be ready. Eleanor stirred in her sleep, murmured something he couldn't quite hear, then settled again. Ben watched over her through the long mountain night, the rancher who had promised to meet a mail-order bride, the woman who had walked through hell to keep her word. They had found each other. Now they just had to survive what came after. Dawn came gray and cold to the line shack. Ben woke to find Eleanor already awake, sitting up in the blankets watching him with those blue eyes that seemed to see through walls. "You stayed awake all night," she said. "Not a question. Somebody had to. Were you protecting me or guarding against me?" Ben stood, stretched, muscles stiff from cold and tension. "Both, maybe. I don't know you yet." An honest answer. I appreciate that. He built up the fire-melted snow for coffee. Outside, the storm had passed. Weak sunlight filtered through gaps in the clouds. The world lay buried under fresh snow, pristine and deadly. Eleanor's frostbitten fingers had regained some color overnight, though they remained swollen and tender. Her toes showed similar improvement. She would keep all her digits. Lucky didn't begin to describe it. "Can you ride?" Ben asked. "I can do whatever needs doing." "That's not what I asked." She met his gaze. "Yes, Benjamin, I can ride. I grew up on a farm in Massachusetts. My father bred horses. I was riding before I could read." Another piece of information, another layer to a woman who seemed constructed of secrets in survival. They shared hardtack and coffee, ate in silence. Outside, thunder stamped and snorted, ready to move. Ben helped Eleanor stand. She wavered but steadied herself. Pride wouldn't let her show weakness. He recognized that impulse. He carried the same one. He saddled Thunder, then lifted Eleanor onto the horse. She settled into the saddle with practiced ease. Ben mounted behind her, his arms around her to hold the reins, her back pressed against his chest. The intimacy of the position felt both necessary and awkward. "We'll take it slow," he said. "Stop when you need to rest." "I don't need to rest." "Yes, you do. And so does the horse." They rode west through snow that reflected sunlight in blinding sheets. Ben kept Thunder to a walk. No need to rush now, the danger had passed, or so he thought. 3 hours into the journey, Ben noticed the tracks, a single rider following parallel to their path. Staying bow, not approaching but definitely following. He said nothing to Eleanor, no point worrying her yet, but his hand stayed near the Winchester. Eleanor broke the silence. "Tell me about your son." "Tommy, he's 10, smart, curious, asks more questions than any 3 boys should be allowed." "What is he like?" "Arrowheads, rocks, books, anything he can collect and study. He's got jars full of interesting stones, boxes of feathers, a whole shelf of books about science and history. His mother taught him to read. Before she died, yes. After that, Martha took over. Martha Brennan. She's been like a grandmother to him." Eleanor was quiet for a moment. "Does he remember his mother?" "Not as much as he pretends. He was 5 when Rebecca died. He remembers feelings more than facts. The smell of lavender, a song she used to sing. But her face, I think he mostly remembers the photograph." "That must be hard, for both of you." "We manage." More silence. The mountains rose around them, eternal, indifferent. Ben had always found comfort in that indifference. The land didn't care about human struggles. It simply existed. "Benjamin," Eleanor's voice came soft, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly." "All right. Why did you advertise for a mail-order bride? A man like you could have found someone locally. Why go looking across the country?" Ben thought about the question, about the real answer beneath the easy lies. Because everyone here knew Rebecca. and everyone here would compare. I needed someone who could be herself, not a replacement, not a shadow of what was. And you think I can be that? I think you're the only person in this conversation who's been completely herself from the start, even when it cost you everything. Eleanor's shoulders relaxed slightly. Thank you. They crested a ridge. Below them, Salida spread out in a valley, small, perhaps 200 souls, but it was civilization, safety, home. And Ben could see smoke rising from chimneys, people moving through streets, life continuing despite winter's assault. There it is, he said. Your new home, if you still want it. Eleanor stared down at the town. It's smaller than I expected. Does that bother you? No, it's perfect. Perfect for disappearing into. They descended towards Salida. As they approached, Ben saw the welcoming committee. Martha Brennan stood on the porch of her boarding house. Frank Calloway waited outside his general store. And Tommy. Tommy stood in the street, bouncing on his toes, barely containing himself. But there was someone else. An older man, well-dressed, distinguished. Judge Harold Patterson, and his presence meant official business. Ben brought thunder to a stop in front of Martha's. Tommy ran forward but stopped short, suddenly shy. Pa, you found her. I did, son. Miss Eleanor, this is Thomas. Tommy, meet Eleanor Whitmore. Eleanor slid down from the horse with Ben's help. She knelt to put herself at eye level with the boy, despite the pain it must have caused her injured feet. Hello, Thomas. Your father has told me wonderful things about you. Tommy's face colored. He did. He said you collect arrowheads in interesting rocks. Is that true? Yes, ma'am. I got maybe 200 arrowheads and rocks from all over. I can show you if you want. I'd like that very much. Tommy's reserve broke. A smile spread across his young face. Ben felt something tighten in his chest. Hope, maybe, or fear that this fragile thing they were building might shatter. Judge Patterson stepped forward, 60 years old, weathered like old leather, sharp eyes that missed nothing. Mr. Ashford, Miss Whitmore, I need to speak with both of you privately. Martha ushered Eleanor toward her boarding house. First things first, Judge. This girl needs a hot bath and a proper meal. Your business can wait an hour. The judge tipped his hat. As you say, Martha, an hour then. Ben watched Eleanor disappear into the boarding house, Martha already fussing over her. Tommy following close behind and chattering about his collections. Frank Calloway approached, handed Ben a folded newspaper from Denver. You'll want to read page 3. Ben opened the paper, scanned the columns until he found it. A notice from a Boston law firm, seeking information about Eleanor Rose Whitmore, offering a reward for her location, claiming she was mentally incompetent and in need of family protection. Hell, Ben muttered. Gets worse, Frank said. Judge Patterson got an official inquiry 2 days ago from Massachusetts courts about Miss Whitmore's whereabouts. They found her already. Small towns talk, word travels. Someone probably sent a telegram the moment you rode in with her. Ben folded the paper. What does the judge want? To make sure everything's legal, and probably to warn you about what's coming. An hour later, Ben and Eleanor sat in Judge Patterson's temporary office above the land registry. The judge poured coffee from a battered pot, his movements deliberate, a man who did nothing without purpose. Miss Whitmore, he began, I've received correspondence from Boston, from the law firm of Whitmore and Associates. They claim you're mentally incompetent, that you require protection from making unsound decisions. Eleanor's voice came steady. They've been making that claim for 20 years, Your Honor. Massachusetts courts have consistently ruled against them. So I understand, but they've now filed papers in federal court, claiming interstate issues require federal jurisdiction. Ben leaned forward. What does that mean? It means they're trying to force Miss Whitmore back to Massachusetts for a competency hearing. And if she refuses, they'll claim she's proving their point. That's a trap, Ben said. A legal one, yes. The judge sipped his coffee. However, there is a complication they may not have considered. What complication? Judge Patterson looked at Eleanor. Miss Whitmore, are you aware of the Married Women's Property Act passed by Massachusetts in 1879? Yes. It gives married women certain property rights independent of their husbands. Correct. But it also does something else. Under both Massachusetts and Colorado law, a married woman's legal domicile becomes that of her husband. If you were to marry Mr. Ashford here in Colorado, Massachusetts, courts would lose primary jurisdiction over your person. The implications settled slowly. Ben understood first. If we marry, they can't force her back. Not easily. They could still file suit, still claim incompetence. But they'd have to do it in Colorado courts, which would require proving Colorado residency, which would take time. And during that time, you'd be legally protected as Mr. Ashford's wife. Eleanor's hands tightened in her lap. Your Honor, are you suggesting we marry for legal protection? I'm not suggesting anything, Miss Whitmore. I'm informing you of the law. What you do with that information is your choice. Ben stood, paced to the window, looked down at Salita's main street, people going about their business, unaware of the legal warfare being planned in distant cities. Eleanor, can I speak with you alone? Judge Patterson rose. I'll give you 10 minutes. Then I need your decision. He left. The door closed. Ben and Eleanor faced each other across the small room. This isn't what I wanted, Ben said. I wanted time to court you properly, to let you know Tommy, to see if what we built through letters could exist in person. But circumstances don't care what we want. No, they don't. Eleanor moved to the window, stood beside him, looking at the same street, the same mountains beyond. Benjamin, why did you come looking for me in that blizzard? He thought about the question, about the real answer. Because I'd read your heart in your letters. Because I couldn't bear the thought of you alone, in that form. And why did I walk through that blizzard? To keep your word. No. She turned to face him. Because I'd read your heart in your letters. Because I chose you, Benjamin Ashford. Not as an escape, as a future. Eleanor, if we do this, if we marry now, it has to be real. I won't trap you in a marriage of convenience. Do you want to marry me? The question hung between them. Direct, honest, demanding the same in return. Yes, Ben said, but I want you to want it too, for the right reasons. Then ask me, properly. Ben took her hands, careful of the frostbitten fingers, looked into those blue eyes that had haunted his thoughts for months. Eleanor Rose Whitmore, will you marry me? Will you be my wife and a mother to Tommy and build a life with me in Colorado? Yes, Benjamin Ashford, I will. They told Judge Patterson their decision. He nodded unsurprised. We'll hold the ceremony in 3 days, December 26th, day after Christmas. That gives you time to prepare, gives the community time to witness, and gives anyone who wants to object time to show up and make their case. You expect trouble? Ben asked. I expect lawyers. Whether that's trouble depends on how good they are. The next 3 days moved in a blur of activity. Martha Brennan took charge of wedding preparations with the efficiency of a field marshal. Women from throughout the valley arrived to help sew a dress. Men contributed food. The church would serve as venue. Tommy shadowed Eleanor everywhere, showing her his arrowhead collection, his rocks, his books, talking incessantly. She listened with patience Ben found remarkable, answered questions, asked her own. The boy was falling in love with her. Ben could see it happening. On the second day, Tommy came to Ben's temporary room at Frank's store. Pa, I need to show Miss Eleanor something, but I wanted to ask you first. Show her what? Tommy pulled a wooden box from under his coat. Ben recognized it. Rebecca's jewelry box, carved walnut, made by Jacob Ashford's hands. Tommy, that's your mother's. I know, but there's something inside, a letter. I found it last month when I was looking for Ma's locket to show Miss Eleanor. He opened the box. Inside lay Rebecca's few pieces of jewelry and an envelope, sealed. Ben's name on the front in Rebecca's handwriting, but not the letter he knew. This was different. Did you read it? Ben asked. No, sir, it's got your name, but I think maybe Miss Eleanor should see it too. Ben broke the seal, unfolded the paper, read Rebecca's words written in the final days of her life. My dearest Ben, if you are reading this, I am gone and you have found someone new. I am glad. Thomas needs a mother and you need a companion. Please do not let my memory become a wall between you and happiness. Tell her about me. Tell Thomas about me. But do not make either of them compete with a ghost. Let me go, Benjamin. Let yourself love again without guilt. I give you my blessing. I give her my blessing. Love her as you loved me. Raise our son together. Be happy. That is all I ever wanted for you. Your Rebecca. Ben's eyes burned. He folded the letter carefully. Tommy, did you know what this said? No, sir, but I figured Ma would want you to be happy. She was always about people being happy. You want Miss Eleanor to see this. I think she should know Ma wanted her to come, in a way. That evening, Ben took Eleanor for a walk, cold but clear, stars brilliant in the winter sky. They walked to the edge of town, stood looking at mountains black against stars. Eleanor, Tommy found something, a letter from Rebecca, written before she died. I want you to read it. He handed her the letter. She read by starlight. When she finished, tears tracked down her cheeks. She was a wise woman. She was, and she was right, about everything, about Tommy needing a mother, about me needing to let go. Eleanor folded the letter, handed it back. I'll never try to replace her Benjamin, but I'll honor her memory by loving her son and by trying to make you happy. You already make me happy, just by being here, by being yourself. They stood in comfortable silence. Then Eleanor spoke again. I need to tell you about the money. You don't have to. Yes, I do, because you need to understand what you're getting into. She told him about the 20-year legal battle, about courts and lawyers and endless fighting, about finally winning control of the Whitmore fortune, and then about the decision she had made. I transferred almost all of it to a charitable trust for war widows and orphans, women like me who lost husbands, children who lost fathers. I kept $5,000, enough to start a new life. The rest let it help people who actually need it. Ben stared at her. You gave away $200,000. I gave away a chain. I kept my freedom. Eleanor Rose Whitmore, I think I'm falling in love with you. Benjamin, I think I fell in love with you months ago when you wrote about teaching Tommy to read the stars. On Christmas Eve, Silas Thornton appeared at Frank's store. Ben was checking supplies when the older man walked in. They hadn't spoken since the fence confrontation. Ashford, got a minute? They stepped outside. Cold bit through coats. Heard you're getting married, Thornton said. News travels. Boston woman, rich they say. Her past is her business. Thornton shifted his weight, uncomfortable. Look, I came to say something about the water rights, about the fence. I'm listening. My boy, Daniel, when he died, it broke something in me. I blamed your father, blamed you when you came back, blamed the fence and the land and everything I could think of. Thornton's voice roughened, but truth is I blamed myself. I sent Daniel out there. I was the one arguing with Jacob about boundaries. My pride killed my son. Ben waited. Let the man talk. That gentleman's agreement. It wasn't about water. It was my father trying to make peace, and your father accepting. They were better men than us. Maybe, or maybe they just had the luxury of perspective we don't have yet. I'm not trying to take your land, Ashford. I'm trying to honor my boy, to make his death mean something. Ben thought about the creek, about the shared resource, about two families bleeding over boundaries that didn't matter to the land itself. Mr. Thornton, I have a proposition. What kind? We build a shared irrigation system. Split the bond, split the water, split the maintenance. We both honor our fathers. We both honor your son, and we both survive. Thornton studied Ben's face, looking for deception, finding none. You'd trust me after I've caused you trouble. You lost a son, I lost a wife. We've both paid enough. Time to build something instead of fighting. Thornton extended his hand. They shook, a deal made without paper, without lawyers, built on nothing but words and need. I'll have my men start work in spring, Thornton said, and I'll have mine meet them. That night, Ben told Eleanor about the agreement. You just made peace with your enemy, she said. He was never my enemy, just another man trying to survive, trying to make sense of loss. You're a good man, Benjamin Ashford. I'm trying to be, that's all. December 26th dawned cold and bright. The church filled early. Seemed like the entire valley had turned out. 87 souls packed into a building meant for 50. Eleanor wore a cream-colored dress sewn by Martha and a dozen other women. Simple but elegant, her blonde hair pinned up, her blue eyes bright. Tommy stood as best man, holding the ring with fierce concentration, determined not to drop it. Ben wore his best suit, brushed, pressed, uncomfortable but appropriate. Reverend Mummel stood at the altar, an old circuit preacher who knew more about humanity than most professors. The ceremony began, then the doors opened. A man entered, late 40s, expensive suit, Eastern tailoring. Behind him, two other men, well-built, alert, Pinkerton agents probably. Lawrence Whitmore, Eleanor's dead husband's brother. The church went silent, and all eyes turned to the newcomer. Lawrence walked down the aisle, calm, deliberate, a man used to getting his way. "Excuse me, Reverend, I must object to this union." Judge Patterson stood from the front pew. "On what grounds, Mr. Whitmore?" "I am Lawrence Whitmore of Boston. This woman, Eleanor Whitmore, is not competent to consent to marriage. She suffers from melancholia and has been under physician care. I have documents from 3 doctors attesting to her mental instability." Eleanor stood straight, voice steady. "You've been claiming that for 20 years, Lawrence. Massachusetts courts ruled against you. Every time. Massachusetts courts were misled. You hid your condition. But I have new evidence. Testimony from people who witnessed your erratic behavior, your decision to abandon a fortune, to travel alone to Colorado, to marry a stranger. These are not the actions of a sound mind. These are the actions of a free woman making her own choices." Lawrence smiled, cold, calculated. "But are they, or are they the actions of someone in the grip of delusion?" Judge Patterson stepped forward. "Mr. Whitmore, do you have these documents with you? I can have them delivered within a week." "Then this objection is premature. Miss Whitmore is under no legal obligation to defend herself against accusations you haven't proven. I can make this marriage a circus, Your Honor. Is that what you want, to drag Mr. Ashford's name through mud, to make this town the center of a scandal?" Ben moved to Eleanor's side. Quiet, solid, present. "Mr. Whitmore, I'm a simple rancher, don't have fancy lawyers or money, but I do have 640 acres free and clear. And I have 87 witnesses who will testify that Eleanor is the sanest woman they've met." He gestured to the packed church. "You want a fight, we'll give you one. But you'll lose because we're not fighting for money. We're fighting for freedom." Frank Calloway stood. "Judge Patterson, I'll testify. Any woman who'd walk through a blizzard to keep a promise is sound of mind." Martha Brennan stood. "I'll testify. She's got more sense than half the men in this room." Then Silas Thornton rose, surprising everyone. "I'll testify too. I've known this woman for 3 days. In that time, I've seen more courage and clarity than in people I've known for years." Others stood, one by one, a community rising in defense of someone they barely knew, because they knew Ben, and because the principle mattered. Lawrence Whitmore looked around the church, saw the wall of resistance, calculated his odds. "This isn't over," he said finally. "I'll file suit. Federal court. You'll hear from my attorneys." He turned to leave, stopped, looked back at Eleanor. "You're making a mistake, Eleanor. James would be ashamed." Eleanor's voice rang clear. "James is dead, Lawrence, and he would want me to be happy, something you've never understood." Lawrence left. His agents followed. The church doors closed. Reverend Mills cleared his throat. "Well, now that that's settled, shall we continue?" The ceremony resumed, vows spoken with deep meaning, Ben promising to protect and cherish, Eleanor promising to honor and support, Tommy handing over the ring without dropping it. "I now pronounce you man and wife. Mr. Ashford, you may kiss your bride." Ben kissed Eleanor, gentle, respectful, full of promise. The church erupted in applause, community celebrating. Not just a wedding, a victory. The reception filled the town hall. Food appeared from nowhere. Music started. People danced. Ben danced with Eleanor, awkward but sincere. She smiled up at him. "We did it. We survived the first battle. More coming. We'll survive those too." Later, when the celebration wound down, Ben and Eleanor prepared to leave for the ranch. Tommy had already gone ahead with Martha to help prepare the house. Frank Calloway pulled Ben aside. "Brother, that lawyer, he meant what he said. This isn't over." "I know. You might lose everything. The ranch, your reputation, everything. Ben looked at Eleanor laughing with a group of women. Frank, I already lost everything once. When Rebecca died, I survived that. I'll survive this. But what if you don't? Then I'll die knowing I fought for something worth fighting for. The ride to the ranch took an hour. Eleanor rode behind Ben on Thunder, the familiar weight of her against his back already feeling natural. The ranch appeared over a ridge, house built by Jacob's hands, barn, corrals, 640 acres of future. It's beautiful, Eleanor said. It's home. You're home now. Tommy burst from the house as they arrived. I got your room ready, Miss Eleanor. I mean, Ma. Can I call you Ma? Eleanor dismounted, knelt before the boy despite tired legs. If you want to, but Tommy, I'm not replacing your mother. I'm just adding to the family. I know, Pa explained, but I think Ma would like you, and I like you, so can I call you Ma? Yes, you can call me Ma. Tommy hugged her, then ran back inside to check on something. Ben helped Eleanor across the threshold. Inside the house smelled of fresh bread, clean, warm, welcoming. Martha had prepared a meal, simple but hearty. They ate together. Ben, Eleanor, Tommy, Martha, a family forming. After dinner, Martha left. Tommy went to bed. Ben and Eleanor sat in the main room, fire crackling, coffee cooling in cups. Tomorrow starts the real work, Ben said. What work? Teaching you about ranch life, about the land, about survival. I'm ready. Are you? This isn't Boston, Eleanor. Out here mistakes kill, weather kills, isolation kills. This is hard country. I've survived worse than hard country. I'll survive this. They sat in comfortable silence. Then Eleanor spoke. Benjamin, I need to tell you something about tonight, about Lawrence or Cowboys. What about him? He won't give up. He'll file suit. He'll use every legal trick he knows, and he knows many. Let him come. We'll fight. But what if we lose? What if the courts rule against us? Ben set down his coffee, looked at his new wife. Eleanor, I once watched men die for a cause they believed in. Some of those causes were worth it. Some weren't. But the men who died believing, they died free. I'd rather die free than live as a prisoner. And I think you would too. Yes, I would. Then we fight together, and we trust that freedom is worth whatever it costs. Eleanor moved closer, rested her head on his shoulder. Thank you, Benjamin. For what? For being exactly who your letters promised you'd be. That night, they shared a room for the first time as husband and wife, nervous, gentle, learning each other, building something new from the ruins of their separate pasts. Morning came soft. Ben woke to find Eleanor already up, dressed in practical clothes, ready to learn. He taught her about the ranch, how to read weather signs and cloud formations, how to check livestock for illness, how to manage the water system he and Thornton would soon improve. She learned fast, steady hands from nursing, sharp mind from legal battles. Within days, she could do most tasks without supervision. Tommy thrived. Having a mother transformed him. He talked more, smiled more, brought Eleanor flowers he found dried under snow, showed her secret places on the ranch. New Year's Eve arrived. 1883 became 1884. They stood on the porch, watching stars, Tommy between them. Family. Next year will be better, Eleanor said. How do you know? Because we're together, and together we can survive anything. Tommy looked up at them. Pa, I'm glad you found each other. Ben ruffled his son's hair. So am I, boy. So am I. The night was peaceful. Perfect. One of those moments that felt carved from eternity. Then Tommy pointed. The barn. Is that smoke? Ben turned, saw orange glow through barn windows. Fire. He ran. Eleanor shouted for Tommy to stay back. Ben burst through barn doors into hell. Flames crawled up wooden walls. Hay burned with intense heat. Smoke choked vision. Thunder screamed from his stall. Panicked. Trapped. Ben grabbed a blanket, soaked it in the water trough, wrapped it around his head and shoulders, ran into smoke. Found Thunder's stall, released the latch. The horse bolted past him, out into safety. Ben turned to leave. Something caught his eye. A kerosene can. They didn't use kerosene, only a lamp oil. This fire was set. He grabbed the can, ran for the door, Behind him, a beam collapsed. Sparks exploded. Heat seared his back. He made it out, stumbled, fell in snow. Eleanor pulled him away from the inferno. The barn burned. 6 months of hay, tools, tack, everything. By the time neighbors arrived to help, only ashes remained. Sheriff Morrison came at dawn, examined the scene, found the kerosene can, found tracks in snow leading away from the barn. Expensive boots, same tracks Ben had seen at the line shack. Someone did this deliberately, the sheriff said. I know. You got enemies, Ashford? Ben thought about Lawrence Whitmore, about Pinkerton agents, about legal warfare and desperate men. Yeah, I got enemies. Eleanor stood beside him, watching her new home's barn reduced to black timber and ash. This is my fault, she said quietly. They're punishing you for marrying me. No, this is them being desperate, which means we're winning. Winning, Ben, they burned your barn. They tried to scare us. Didn't work. So what do we do? Eleanor looked at him, steel in her spine, pure in her eyes. We rebuild, and we don't give them the satisfaction of seeing us quit. Ben pulled her close, kissed the top of her head. That's my girl. By afternoon, the community had gathered. Frank brought lumber. Thornton sent his men to help. Women brought food. The whole valley came together. In 5 days, they rebuilt the barn, bigger than before, stronger. A testament to what people could do when they stood together. And through it all, Ben watched the tree line, waiting for whoever had struck once to strike again. Because this wasn't over. Lawrence Whitmore had declared war, and wars had casualties. But Ben had survived one war already. He'd survived this one too. With Eleanor beside him, with Tommy to protect, with a community at his back. Let them come. He'd be ready. Sheriff Morrison worked the burn site like a man reading a book written in ash and snow. Ben watched him move through the ruins. Methodical, patient. The lawman had learned his trade hunting Apache in Arizona territory. He knew how to read signs most men would miss. Kerosene, Morrison said, holding up the blackened can. But you don't use kerosene in your barn. Your wife confirmed you use lamp oil exclusively. That's right. So somebody brought this, somebody who wanted to make sure the fire took hold fast. The sheriff knelt by a set of tracks preserved in hardened snow. These boots, custom made, Eastern manufacture. See the heel, that's Philadelphia work, maybe Boston. Ben studied the prints, same ones he had seen outside the line shack, same ones that had followed them from the mountains. Pinkerton agent, most likely, or private security, either way professional. This wasn't some drifter looking to cause trouble. Morrison stood, brushed ash from his knees. Mr. Ashford, I can confirm arson, I can document evidence, but without a witness who saw the act, without catching the man with fire in his hands, I can't make an arrest, you understand? I understand. What I can do is patrol more frequently. Keep watch. Make sure whoever did this knows we're paying attention. That's something. It's not enough, but it's what I got. Frank Calloway arrived mid-morning with a wagon full of lumber. Behind him came 3 more wagons, men from neighboring ranches. Some Ben barely knew, but they came anyway. Silas Thornton rode up on his bay mare, dismounted, walked directly to Ben. Heard about the fire, brought my men to help rebuild. Ben extended his hand, appreciated. They shook, an alliance forged not from friendship but from mutual respect, from understanding that survival in a hard country required cooperation. The work began, men framing, others sawing lumber, the rhythm of construction replacing the silence of destruction. Eleanor worked alongside them, carrying boards, holding timber while men nailed. She wore work clothes borrowed from Martha, too large but functional, her frostbitten fingers still tender but healing. Mary Cooper pulled her aside. Mrs. Ashford, you shouldn't be doing this heavy work. You should rest. This is my home too, Mary. I'll help build it. The women exchanged looks, but they said nothing more. Eleanor had proven herself, not with words, with presence, with refusal to be coddled. Tommy worked harder than any 10-year-old should, fetching nails, carrying water, learning from men who taught through demonstration rather than lecture. Ben watched his son, saw him growing, becoming. The boy who had been afraid of losing his father to a new wife now thrived with both parents present. An old-timer named Pete Harrison took a break, sat on a stump, rolled a cigarette with gnarled fingers. Your father would be proud, Ben. Which part? All of it. The way you handled Thornton. The way you went after your woman in a blizzard. The way you're rebuilding instead of quitting. Pete lit the cigarette, drew deep. Jacob once told me something. After my barn burned in '78, he said a community is built on what we give, not what we take. Looks like you learned that lesson. Trying to? That's all any man can do. Try. By the fifth day, the barn stood complete, bigger than before, stronger. Neighbors had contributed not just labor, but materials, hay, tools, even a new saddle from the combined efforts of 3 ranches. Eleanor stood beside Ben, looking at what they had built together. It's beautiful. It's functional. That's better than beautiful. Can it be both? Ben smiled. Yeah, I suppose it can. January 5th arrived cold and clear. The water rights hearing. Ben dressed in his best suit. Eleanor beside him. They rode to town in the wagon. Tommy stayed with Martha. The courthouse temporary room above the land office, packed with spectators, seemed like half the valley wanted to see how this played out. Judge Patterson presided. Formal, proper. But his eyes showed kindness beneath judicial reserve. Thornton sat with his attorney, a Denver lawyer named Wilson, well-dressed, confident, the kind of man who made his living from other people's conflicts. Ben had no attorney, couldn't afford one, would represent himself. The proceeding began with Wilson laying out Thornton's case. He presented the history, the 1867 gentleman's agreement, the testimony of witnesses who remembered both fathers discussing water sharing, the principle of prior appropriation under Colorado law. The Thornton family has used water from this creek since 1865, Wilson argued. Mr. Ashford's claim dates only to 1879. Prior use establishes prior right. This is fundamental water law in the American West. Judge Patterson listened, made notes, asked questions. Then Ben stood to present his defense. He walked to the front of the room, placed his ranch deed on the table, unrolled a survey map, pointed to boundary lines certified by the government land office. Your Honor, the creek runs through my property. Deed grants me water rights as appurtenant to the land. The gentleman's agreement Mr. Thornton references was never formalized, never recorded. Under Colorado statute, water rights must be documented or they don't exist in law. He pulled out another document. However, I'm not here to argue about who has superior legal standing. The room stirred, confused. Ben looked at Thornton, at the older man's weathered face, at the grief still visible after 12 years. Mr. Thornton lost his son because of a boundary dispute. My father was there. He tried to save the boy. Failed. Both men carried that weight. Both men tried to make peace through an agreement that honored the boy's memory. He pulled a third document from his coat. Fresh. Dated January 1st, 1884. This is a written agreement between Silas Thornton and myself. We've agreed to build a shared irrigation system. Split costs, split water, split maintenance. Both properties benefit. Both families survive. And Daniel Thornton's death becomes something other than waste. He handed the document to Judge Patterson. The judge read it carefully. This agreement is witnessed and notarized. Yes, Your Honor, signed by both parties, filed with the county recorder yesterday. Judge Patterson looked at Thornton. Is this accurate, Mr. Thornton? Thornton stood. It is, Your Honor. Mr. Ashford and I have resolved our differences. We're asking the court to formalize this agreement rather than rule on competing claims. Wilson, the attorney, looked stunned. He had prepared for battle. Instead, he faced peace. Judge Patterson allowed himself a small smile. Gentlemen, it's rare that I see wisdom walk into my courtroom. Mr. Ashford, you could have won this case. The law favors your position. Why didn't you simply fight? Ben thought about the question, about the real answer. Because winning isn't always about taking everything, Your Honor. Sometimes it's about building something that lasts. The judge struck his gavel. Agreement approved and entered into county records. Case dismissed. The courtroom erupted in applause. People standing, celebrating not a victory, but a resolution. Thornton crossed the room, extended his hand to Ben. Your father would be proud. So would yours. They shook, then embraced. Two men who had been enemies becoming something better. Allies, maybe even friends. Outside the courthouse, Eleanor waited. She kissed Ben's cheek. You did good. We did good. This was your idea. Building instead of fighting. I just suggested. You executed. They walked towards the wagon. Then Ben saw him, Lawrence Whitmore, standing across the street, watching. With him two men, Pinkerton agents, well-dressed, alert, dangerous. Lawrence crossed the street, deliberate, a man who had traveled far to make a point. Mr. Ashford, Mrs. Ashford, or should I say Mrs. Whitmore? Eleanor's voice came steady. It's Mrs. Ashford now, Lawrence, legally, permanently. We'll see about that. Lawrence pulled papers from his coat, legal documents, thick, official. I'm filing suit in federal court, claiming you owe the Whitmore family $50,000 for legal expenses incurred during your competency battles. If you can't pay, I'll seize assets to satisfy the debt. I have documentation for every penny spent, Eleanor said. All legitimate expenses were paid from the trust. Your documentation versus mine. We'll let federal judges decide. Ben stepped forward, not aggressive, just present. Mr. Whitmore, you're on my land. Colorado land. You've made your threats. Now I'll make mine. His voice dropped. Quiet, controlled. The voice of a man who had killed in war and would do so again if necessary. You burned my barn. I know it. Sheriff knows it. We just can't prove it yet. But if anything happens to my wife, my son, or my property again, proof won't matter. Understanding, Lawrence held Ben's gaze, saw something there that made him hesitate. This wasn't some frontier rube he could intimidate. This was a man who had seen combat, who had buried a wife, who had nothing left to lose except what he had just gained. Are you threatening me, Mr. Ashford? I'm making a promise. Leave us alone. Or discover that Colorado is a long way from Boston lawyers and federal courts. Eleanor stepped between them. Lawrence, listen to me. I've given away the fortune. I've filed legal documents. There's nothing left for you to take except my happiness. And you can't have that. You're a fool, Eleanor. Perhaps, but I'm a free fool. And you're a miserable rich man. I know which I'd rather be. Lawrence looked at her. Really looked. Saw determination. Saw peace. Saw something he had never possessed despite all his wealth. This isn't over, he said, but the words lacked conviction. Yes, Lawrence, it is. He turned to leave, stopped, looked back. James would have wanted you to be happy. The admission surprised everyone, especially Lawrence himself. Eleanor's voice softened. Then honor him by letting me go. Lawrence walked away. His agents followed. They climbed into a waiting carriage, drove toward the Denver road. Ben watched them disappear. Think he'll be back? No, Eleanor said. That was goodbye. He just needed to make it look like his idea. She swayed suddenly. Ben caught her mirror. Eleanor, you all right? Just tired, it's been a long day. But her face had gone pale, her breathing shallow. We're getting you to the doctor, doctor. Maxwell examined Eleanor in his office. Ben waited outside, pacing, worried. When the doctor emerged, he was smiling. Congratulations, Mr. Ashford. You're going to be a father. Ben's mind went blank. What? Your wife is approximately 6 weeks pregnant, likely conceived around your wedding night, give or take. The news hit like a physical blow. A baby, another child, another chance. Is she all right? The frostbite, the stress, the fire. She's exhausted, but healthy. The baby seems fine. She needs rest. No heavy work for a while. But barring complications, you should have a new addition by late summer. Ben sat down hard on a bench, put his head in his hands. Tommy appeared. Pa, what's wrong? Ben looked up at his son, at the boy's worried face. Nothing's wrong, Tommy. Everything's perfect. Then why do you look scared? Because I am, in the best possible way. Eleanor emerged from the examination room. She moved to Ben, took his hands. You heard? Yeah, a baby. Are you happy? Ben pulled her into his arms, held her like she might disappear. Happy doesn't begin to cover it. Tommy tugged on Ben's sleeve. Pa, what's happening? Eleanor knelt before the boy, careful, gentle. Tommy, how would you feel about being a big brother? The boy's eyes went wide. Really, a baby? Really? Tommy whooped, loud enough to startle horses 3 blocks away. Then he hugged Eleanor. Then Ben. Then both together. That night back at the ranch, Ben sat in his study. The photograph of Rebecca rested in his hands. He spoke to the image, to the memory, to the woman who had released him. We're having a baby, Rebecca. Eleanor and I, a brother or sister for Tommy. He traced her face through the glass. I hope you're proud. I hope you approve. I'm trying to honor what you asked. To live, to love, to give Tommy the family you wanted for him. He opened the drawer, placed the photograph inside, beside Rebecca's letters. Thank you for understanding. Thank you for letting go. He closed the drawer, stood, moved on. The winter months passed in a rhythm of work and preparation. January became February. February became March. Eleanor's pregnancy progressed. Morning sickness came and went. Her body changed, rounded, glowed with life. She established a medical clinic in the spare room, treating ranch families, teaching Mary Cooper basic nursing, charging nothing for those who couldn't pay. Word spread. People came from throughout the valley. A woman with real medical training was rare. A woman willing to help without judgment was rarer still. Ben watched his wife work, saw her setting broken bones, stitching wounds, delivering folk wisdom mixed with genuine skill. You're good at this, he told her one evening. I had good teachers, army surgeons at Gettysburg. They taught me that healing is about more than medicine. It's about hope. Tommy thrived. He divided his time between ranch work with Ben and learning medicine from Eleanor. The boy absorbed knowledge like dry earth absorbing rain. Pa, he asked one night, can a person be both a rancher and a doctor? Why not? Who says you have to choose just one thing? Nobody, I guess. I just thought you had to pick. Son, you can be anything you're willing to work for. Don't let anyone tell you different. The community grew around them. Frank Calloway expanded his store. Railroad brought new people, new businesses. Salida swelled from 200 souls to 500. Judge Patterson retired. A younger judge took his place, more progressive, more willing to challenge old assumptions. Ben kept detailed ledgers. Eleanor helped with bookkeeping. They tracked income and expenses with precision that would have impressed any Boston accountant. Cattle sales brought $1,200. Railroad right-of-way added another $1,000. Hay sales contributed $300. Against this, they paid feed costs, tool replacement, wages for the Cooper family, and property taxes. The ranch broke even with small profit, not wealth, but sustainability. And that was enough. Ben taught Tommy about money, about managing resources, about planning for lean years. A ranch is a business, son. You have to manage money as carefully as you manage cattle. More carefully, maybe. Cattle you can see. Money disappears if you're not watching. March brought warming. Snow began to melt. The creek ran high with runoff. The irrigation system Ben and Thornton had designed handled the flow perfectly. Thornton rode over one afternoon, inspected the work. It's good, better than I expected. Your design was sound. Our design, you contributed as much as I did. They stood watching water flow through channels, dividing equally between properties, sustaining both. Ben, I need to tell you something. All right. That night your barn burned. I saw someone, a man on horseback, riding away from your property toward town. I didn't think much of it then, but later after the fire I realized the timing was wrong. Nobody had business being on that road at that hour. Did you recognize him? No, but I recognized the horse. Rental from the livery in Salida. That narrows it down. Ben filed the information away. Another piece, another confirmation, but still not enough for an arrest. Thanks for telling me. Should have told you sooner. I was still angry then, still fighting old battles. But you changed that, showed me a different way. We changed it together. Eleanor's pregnancy advanced. By late March, her condition was obvious. The women of the valley took notice, brought gifts, baby clothes, advice. So much advice. Sarah Cooper Frank's wife visited one afternoon. Mrs. Ashford, when are you due? Dr. Maxwell thinks late August, maybe early September. You'll want to stay in town the last month. closer to medical help. Eleanor shook her head. My place is here, with Ben and Tommy. We'll manage. But what if there are complications? Then we'll deal with them. I've delivered babies before. I know what can go wrong. I also know that worrying about it won't help. The women exchanged glances, but they said nothing more. Eleanor had earned their respect. One evening in early April, a letter arrived from Boston, from the law offices of Whitmore and Associates. Ben opened it, read slowly, then handed it to Eleanor. Lawrence Whitmore was withdrawing legal challenges, acknowledging Eleanor's marriage as legitimate, conceding the charitable trust as legal and binding. We're free, Eleanor whispered. You were always free. He just finally admitted it. She burned the letter in the fireplace, watched it curl and blacken. It's over. Finally over. Ben pulled her close, felt the swell of her pregnant belly between them. Now we can focus on what matters. Family, future. The life we're building. Spring arrived with explosive force. Wildflowers bloomed across meadows. Birds returned from southern migrations. The world renewed itself. Eleanor planted a garden, vegetables, herbs, and lavender for Tommy, for Rebecca's memory. Tommy helped, digging, planting, learning. Ma, why lavender? Eleanor knelt beside him. The pregnancy made kneeling difficult, but she managed. Because your first mother loved it, and because I want you to remember her, not just from photographs, but from growing things, living things. Will you tell the new baby about her? Yes, and about your grandfather Jacob, and about all the people who came before. That's what family is, Tommy, not just the living, but everyone who made us who we are. Summer brought heat. Eleanor grew larger. Moving became difficult, but she refused to slow down. Dr. Maxwell visited the ranch regularly, checking on her progress, making sure everything developed normally. You should consider staying in town for the last month, he suggested. No. Eleanor, if there are complications during delivery, I need to be able to reach you quickly. Then you'll have to ride fast. The doctor sighed. You're as stubborn as your husband. One of my many charms. Ben prepared for the birth with military precision. Clean linens, boiled water ready, medical supplies organized, laudanum for pain, everything in place. Mary Cooper agreed to assist. She had delivered 5 of her own children and helped with dozens more. We'll manage, she assured Ben. Women have been having babies since the beginning of time. That doesn't make it less dangerous. No, but it makes it normal, and normal we can handle. August arrived hot and dry. Eleanor moved slowly, uncomfortable, ready for the pregnancy to end. How much longer? Tommy asked one evening. Doctor says maybe 2 weeks, maybe 3. Will it hurt? Eleanor looked at the boy honestly. Yes, but it's a good hurt, because it brings life. Tommy thought about that. I hope it's a brother, but a sister would be okay too. Either way, you'll be a good big brother. How do you know? Because I've watched you with the animals. You're gentle, patient, kind. Those are the qualities that matter. August 28th, late afternoon. Eleanor's water broke. She stood in the kitchen, looked at Ben calmly. It's time. Ben's heart hammered. Now. He sent Tommy to fetch Mary Cooper. Boiled water, prepared the bedroom, moved with controlled panic. Eleanor labored through the evening, contractions coming regular. Strong. Mary coached her breathing. You're doing fine, just breathe through it. I've done this before. With soldiers, I know how it works. Knowing and experiencing are different things. The hours crawled, night fell, labor continued. Ben paced in the main room, unable to help, unable to do anything but wait. Tommy sat with him, silent, worried. Pa, will Ma be okay? She's strong and Mary knows what she's doing. But people die having babies, I heard about it. Ben knelt before his son. Yes, they do. But your Ma is not most people. She survived things that would have killed others. She'll survive this. Midnight passed, then 1 in the morning, then 2. Mary emerged from the bedroom, face serious. Ben, there's a problem. His blood went cold. What problem? Baby's breech. Feet first instead of head. We need to turn it. Can you do that? I've done it once, long time ago, but Eleanor's talking me through it. She's seen it done in field hospitals. What do you need from me? Pray and be ready to ride for the doctor if things go wrong. She went back inside, the door closed. Ben did pray to God, to Rebecca, to anyone who might be listening. 3 in the morning, a scream from the bedroom. Then silence. Ben's hand went to the door handle. Stopped. Mary had been clear. Don't interrupt. Then a baby's cry. Weak at first, then stronger. The bedroom door opened. Mary stood there, exhausted, smiling. You have a son. Ben's knees almost gave out. Eleanor. Tired, but fine. Come meet your boy. He entered. The bedroom was chaos. Bloody linens, medical implements, the aftermath of battle. Eleanor lay propped on pillows, hair plastered to her head with sweat, face pale, but alive, and holding a tiny bundle wrapped in clean cloth. Benjamin, come meet Jacob. He crossed to the bed, looked down at his son, red-faced, tiny, perfect. Jacob, after your father, if that's all right. Ben couldn't speak, could only nod, tears streaming down his face. Tommy appeared in the doorway, eyes wide. Is that my brother? Eleanor beckoned. Come see. The boy approached cautiously, looked at the baby. He's really small. You were once, too. Can I hold him? Eleanor guided Tommy's arms, showed him how to support the baby's head. The newborn nestled against his big brother. I'll protect you, Jake, Tommy whispered. I promise. Ben watched his family. Wife, sons, plural now, the geometry of his life expanding. Thank you, he said to Eleanor. For what? For being brave enough to walk through that blizzard, for giving me this. We gave it to each other. Outside, dawn broke over the Colorado mountains. A new day, a new life, a new beginning. The weeks following Jacob's birth fell into exhausting routine. Sleepless nights, constant feeding, diapers, the endless cycle of infant care. But also joy, watching the baby grow, watching Tommy transform into a protective older brother, watching Eleanor bloom into motherhood. September arrived, cooler temperatures, harvest season. Eleanor recovered quickly. Within 3 weeks, she was back to limited work. Within 6, she had resumed her medical practice. Ben marveled at her resilience. Most women take months to recover. Most women didn't work field hospitals during the war. I learned to keep moving no matter what. The community celebrated Jacob's arrival. Gifts appeared. Food, baby clothes. So much support that Ben struggled to accept it all. Let them help, Eleanor said. It's how community works. Today they give, tomorrow we give. It balances. October brought unexpected news. Lawrence Whitmore had died. Heart failure. In his sleep. No suffering. The letter from his attorney included a final message. Lawrence had altered his will, left a small bequest to Eleanor, $500, and a note. Eleanor, I fought you because I couldn't accept that James chose you over family duty. I was wrong. You honored his memory better than any of us. Use this as you see fit, perhaps for the child I hear you now have. My nephew would have wanted his niece or nephew provided for. Forgive an old fool his stubbornness. Lawrence. Eleanor read the letter twice, then folded it carefully. He made peace at the end. That's something. Will you accept the money? Yes, and I'll put it aside for Jacob's education. Or Tommy's, whichever boy needs it more. Winter approached, the first anniversary of Ben finding Eleanor in the snow. They established a tradition. Every year on December 21st, the family would return to the line shack where it all began. This first year, they bundled baby Jacob warmly, loaded supplies on a pack horse, rode out together. The line shack had been improved. Proper bed, curtains, supplies stored for their annual visits. They built a fire, ate simple food, told stories. Tommy asked to hear how his parents met. Again, he never tired of the story. Ben and Eleanor told it together, trading lines, filling in details. There was a blizzard, Ben began, and a stubborn woman who wouldn't wait, Eleanor continued, and a stubborn man who couldn't. And we found each other. Tommy smiled. That's my favorite story. Jacob slept in Eleanor's arms. Too young to understand, but someday he would. Someday both boys would know the full tale. That night, as Eleanor and the boys slept, Ben stepped outside. looked at stars brilliant in cold sky. He thought about the journey, about everything that had led here. The advertisement, the letters, the blizzard, the rescue, the legal battles, the barn fire, the birth, all of it necessary, all of it shaping them into who they had become. He whispered to the mountains, to Gwaim, to fate, thank you. 5 years passed. Ben was 38 now, Eleanor 47. The years had marked them, but not diminished them. Tommy was 15, tall, responsible. He split his time between ranch work and studying medicine with Dr. Maxwell. Plans to attend medical school in Denver were forming. Jacob was 5, curious, energetic, always asking questions, already showing signs of both parents' intelligence. And there were more. Rose Rebecca, 3 years old, named for both grandmothers. Blonde like Eleanor, serious like Ben, and Samuel Thornton, 1 year old, named for Silas Thornton, who had become not just neighbor but friend, family and all but blood. The ranch had expanded from 640 acres to 1,200. Ben had purchased neighboring property when it became available. Cattle operation thrived. Horse breeding program even more so. The railroad brought buyers. The Ashford Ranch gained reputation for quality. Eleanor's medical clinic had become official, serving the entire Arkansas Valley. She trained other women, created a network of caregivers. Tommy was apprenticing with Dr. Maxwell, would leave for medical school next year. The thought of his departure pained Ben, but pride outweighed pain. The community had grown around them. Salida now boasted 1,200 residents, schools, churches, businesses. It was becoming a real town. One winter afternoon, Silas Thornton visited, now 55, white-haired, but still strong. He and Ben sat on the porch, watching the children play in snow. "Remember when we were enemies?" Thornton asked. "We were never enemies, just two stubborn men who needed to learn to talk." "You taught me something, Ben. That honor isn't about winning, it's about doing right." "My father taught me that. I'm just trying to live up to it." Thornton was quiet for a moment, then spoke again. "I have a confession. That night your barn burned. I was the one who saw the rider, the one with the expensive boots. I know, you told me. But what I didn't tell you is that I followed him, saw where he went. He met with Lawrence Whitmore's men at the hotel, took payment." Ben turned to look at his neighbor. "Why didn't you tell me then?" "Because I was still angry, still fighting old battles. Part of me thought you deserved trouble for marrying into it. And now? Now I know better. Now I know that helping you would have been the right thing. I'm sorry I didn't do it sooner." Ben extended his hand. "We all make mistakes. Question is whether we learn from them." They shook. Old grievances finally buried. That evening, the whole family gathered for dinner. Ben and Eleanor, Tommy and Jacob and Rose and Samuel, Martha Brennan, who still helped despite her advancing age, the Cooper family, even Silas Thornton and his wife. The table overflowed with food, with laughter, with life. After dinner, Tommy approached Ben and Eleanor together. "I've been thinking about legacy, about what we leave behind." "And what conclusion did you reach?" Ben asked. "That it's not about land or money. It's about the people we help and the values we pass on." Eleanor's eyes shone with pride. "Where did you learn that?" "From watching you both." Later, after everyone had left, Ben and Eleanor stood on the porch, watching sunset paint the mountains gold and crimson. "Do you ever regret it?" Eleanor asked. "Choosing this life, choosing me." Ben pulled her close. After 5 years of marriage, the gesture was automatic, natural. "Every morning I wake up next to you, I thank God for blizzards." She laughed. "That's terrible." "But true." They stood in comfortable silence. Then Eleanor spoke again. "I've been thinking about something, about starting a school, a real school, for all the children in the valley. You already run a medical clinic, take care of 4 children, help manage the ranch. You want to add teaching. Not me, but maybe I could organize it, find teachers, raise money, build a building." Ben thought about it, about his wife's endless energy, her drive to improve everything she touched. "If anyone can do it, you can. Will you help? Always." The seasons turned, years accumulated. The Ashford family became pillars of the community, known not for wealth but for integrity, for helping neighbors, for building rather than taking. Tommy went to Denver for medical school, wrote letters home every week, excelled in his studies. Jacob grew into a bright, curious boy, already reading advanced books, already asking questions that challenged adult answers. Rose showed her mother's determination. At 3, she demanded to learn everything, reading, numbers, how things worked. Samuel was too young yet, but already showing signs of his father's quiet strength. One December evening, 10 years after that first rescue, Ben and Eleanor took the children back to the line shack. It had become a family pilgrimage, a way to remember, to honor where they had come from. The shack was well maintained now, almost comfortable, but still primitive enough to recall that first desperate night. They built a fire, cooked simple food, told stories. Jacob, now 10, wanted to hear the story of how his parents met. Ben and Eleanor told it, as they always did, together. "I was lost in a blizzard," Eleanor said, "and I was looking for a woman I'd never met," Ben added, "but whose heart I knew from letters, and whose courage saved her life. We found each other when it seemed impossible. And we built this." Ben gestured to their family, to everything they had created. Jacob listened with rapt attention. "Do you believe in fate, Pa?" Ben thought about the question, about all the coincidences that had to align. The delayed stagecoach, the sabotage, the storm, his decision to ride out, finding Eleanor in time. "I believe in blizzards and stubborn women and second chances. I believe that sometimes the best things in life come from the hardest journeys." Eleanor added, "And I believe that home isn't a place. It's the people who choose to stand beside you when the storm comes." That night, Ben stepped outside, looked at the same stars that had watched over that first desperate rescue. He thought about Rebecca, about the letter she had written, about her blessing. He thought about Eleanor, about the courage it took to walk through a blizzard, about the strength it took to build a life from nothing. He thought about his children, all of them, each one a gift, a chance, a future. And he understood something fundamental. He had advertised for a mail-order bride, a practical solution to a practical problem. But he had found so much more. A partner, a friend, a woman who matched him in strength and exceeded him in courage. She had never arrived on that stagecoach in Salida, but she had arrived exactly where she needed to be. They both had. The mail-order bride who never came had become the wife who stayed, the stranger who became family, the woman who transformed a house into a home, and a widower into a husband, and a boy into a brother. Ben returned inside, found Eleanor nursing young Samuel, the older children already asleep. He sat beside his wife, put his arm around her. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what?" "For being brave, for choosing us, for building this life. We built it together." "Yes, we did." Outside, snow began to fall, soft, gentle. Nothing like that terrible blizzard 10 years ago, but enough to remind them, enough to make them grateful. For second chances, for stubborn choices, for love that survives storms, for family, for home.